Welcome to Trust the Journey. I'm Jason Moledzki. Our mission is to live, love, laugh, and learn together with you. We're here to create conscious connections, to grow and contribute through our practice of openness, honesty, vulnerability, humility, and trust, trusting the entire journey. Across the internet, our handle is trustthejourney.today. You can find us anywhere. That's also our website where you can find all of our links. If you'd like a cost-free way of supporting the program, please consider subscribing on any of our channels, especially YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, those kind of places. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts if you think we deserve it. And one of the things that you can do that really helps is share an episode with somebody who you feel like will get value from it. Our Patreon community, the Trust the Journey family, is how we keep the show going. This is a private Facebook group where we expand the conversation directly with anyone seeking community, connection, support in their healing journeys. We hold deep, safe, non-judgmental, and encouraging space for it all to be vulnerable, supporting of each other, of our challenges, our successes, our failures. All of them are welcome there. If you're interested in joining one of our live integration circles, they are also included for those who join the Patreon community at the $25 level. You can go to trustthejourney.today, click the orange Patreon button. That'll take you over there and you can subscribe. If you'd like to connect with me, Jason, you can go to jasonmoledzki.com. If you're looking for my co-host, Miss Melanie Curtis, you can find her at melaniecurtis.com. So, and one more reminder, when we're talking about plant medicines or psychedelics, we are sharing for informational purposes only. We are not doctors and we do not promote anything illegal. In today's episode, I am thrilled to welcome Jacob Tell. Jacob Tell is the founder of District216, a members-only psychedelic social club for thinkers, creators, and trailblazers, a community where education meets entertainment in art, music, cannabis, and psychedelics. Jacob has been uniting creativity and culture for 2 decades. He's the driving force behind the branding and creative marketing agency
Oniracom.
Oniracom. Founded in 2001, he spent more than 2 decades pioneering a culture of positive disruption. I love that. His journey is not merely a career, but a tapestry of authentic relationships, a commitment to team building, a steadfast dedication to shaping culture. And with an educational background in film and politics, Jacob seeks world-changing solutions for positive and creative people. He carries with him a deep appreciation for nature, a hopeful vision for the future of human ecology. Jacob actively supports forward-thinking environmental and political leaders and aims to further the meld of the realms of artistry and science. And with that, I welcome to the show, Jacob Tell.
Thank you, Jason. I apologize for the mouthful of a bio, but thanks for getting through that. Appreciate it.
Honestly, you're more than welcome. And, being here with you and reading that and really thinking about it, I'm like, man, I can't not wait to dive deeper into this conversation. I relate to so much of what is said there.
Beautiful. I've been excited about this since we had initially connected the other week and been kind of brewing on a few things. Hopefully they'll come to the surface during our time together.
Awesome. I want to bring us around to what led us to being here today. And I want to start that journey with, when did your psychedelic journey start? How did that start? How did it come to be? And that will eventually bring us back around to why we're sitting here today.
Sure. I mean, I'm a child of the 80s and went to college in the late 90s. And it was really right at that time. I ended up in a beautiful part of the country in Santa Barbara, where I still am today, planted some roots. And I think actually the psychedelics use at UC Santa Barbara, out there on Campus Point, for those of you gauchos who know what I'm talking about, that was kind of my magnet in to this geography. And I think also to trying to understand and learn more of the history with the Chumash tribe here, and just trying to feel that connection with this beautiful location that I've been in. But yeah, I was about 18 when it all unfolded.
So how long has it been now?
I mean, better part of my adult life. I'm 43. So
Okay.
yeah, good 25 years of psychedelics use in different contexts and capacities.
Yeah, I think that's a really important statement. I can relate. I've been a child of a I was on my old high school Facebook page recently, and somebody posted a meme of just remembering school in the old days, and it had some kids with acid tabs on their tongues, and I was like, yeah, that's where I started, was in high school, and it's been a lifetime of varied types of psychedelic use for me, with starting off very recreational and very abstract, and then moving more and more into the spiritual realm, and further into the ceremonial and the medicinal healing realm.
We have a very similar trajectory. In fact, same thing. I was on this Facebook group where it's like I partied in Isla Vista from years this to that. And I'm like, yep, that's when I was there. That's the little party college town off the side of UC Santa Barbara. And everyone's in there talking about their alcohol stories. And I'm going in there trying to say, no. Remember the mushroom journeys and the acid trips and the mescaline and this and that. And, they're talking about keg stands. And I just remembered the distinction that we all saw, like when we were tripping around drunk people and being on such different frequency levels and going like, I mean, even when we were doing it recreationally, there was a sense of spiritual connection. There was a sense of some kind of inner development and small group team development as well. I feel from the very start.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So let's draw the link here from a recreational past to a community-based present moment. How did this journey begin? When did you found District 216? Is it 216 or 216?
Either one. I mean, District 216 is what I find myself saying more, although it's interchangeable. So whatever people feel called to.
Okay, so tell me about District 216 and where the motivation came from. What's the goals? What's it all about?
Sure. I mean, there's context, so I could just dive right in there. I could go back a little either way.
Let's get some history. I'd like to hear what's the origin story of all of this.
Sure. I mean, so for me, the same pretty much era as I'm learning about my relationship with cannabis and my relationship with psychedelics and being independent in college and all those things, I also got exposed to my family, my community, my church, my cults, I joke, which is the band Fish. For those of you that don't know, that's with a PH. And I really right there in the late 90s started going to see shows with psychedelics as well. And it completely opened my eyes to not just the scene and not just the power of live music and the community around it, but it created this need and drive for entrepreneurial venture within me. And all of what I have done since, and the various ventures I've been involved in, starting with Oniracom, the marketing company 22 years ago, 2001, when we founded that, came from this thread of what these guys did, which is an environment of yes and, this improvisational spirit. You're never going to know what's going to happen that night. The connection between artist and fan, breaking that wall down and creating this, very energetic exchange, being very authentic to the moment, trying to be very present, and creating community intentionally around all of that. And so all of that has been carried through and into the marketing company. I could then go down the journey of working in the music industry early on and getting opportunities to go out and tour the world internationally and manage and run merchandise for Jack Johnson, an amazing, incredible artist, learning how to bring sustainability and environmentalism into cause-driven marketing from there. For a decade doing the music industry thing, working with major labels, then moving into consumer packaged goods, eventually into cannabis, eventually into psychedelics. Then the pandemic hits. We have this empty building. What are we going to do? Fast forwarding through the Cliffs Notes for you, but creating basically a venue out of our building, doing events eventually here. And so when you fast forward to about a year and a half, 2 years ago, when I knew I wanted to do more community building, more event production, and when I realized that I could wrap a social club membership model around it, if you put everything I just said into a blender, essentially District216 came out. It was community, it was events, it's media, educational thought leadership, bringing together people to learn and share and grow, at the same time, and doing it around topics that really matter. A lot of things that are taboo that should be normalized, especially around cannabis and psychedelics. And really, it's all about consciousness raising. So that's a long-winded way to answer that question.
Thank you. Though the detail there, the comprehensiveness really helps to put some foundation in place to understand, where we're at today. And I want to say I completely agree with you about the, creating a safe space to discuss the taboo, air quotes on taboo, so many things that we have lived our lives feeling like we can't talk about them, and that they're the judgment that comes along with that, and finally saying, what, we're tired of not talking about these things because they're part of our lives, and we're all just pretending like it isn't for like some magic, the great Oz behind the curtain kind of thing. This is the reality of the world. This is the culture that we are all born into, have lived in, and continue to live in and grow into. And it's up to us to define what we want it to look like going forward. So people like yourself are making action steps towards creating and holding safe places for us to be completely vulnerable about who we really are and the cultures that we want to foster and curate. Thank you. I applaud. I'm a huge fan.
I receive that. I feel heard and seen in that. And I think for me, if the ripple effect goes back out of just living in alignment and being authentic, like those are the things that truly matter if we're going to elevate consciousness and make the society that we want. And so actually, when you asked me, funny enough, to send you a headshot, I decided to send you two. I didn't listen to your rule. I sent you a before and an after, before coming out of the psychedelics closet, and then since living in alignment.
Awesome.
And if you looked at my LinkedIn profile, you'll see right up there what hashtags I use, what headshot I used, what my little byline is. And it certainly isn't that old school way of approaching LinkedIn. I wanted to disrupt that as well.
Now, disruption, is a great thing, because I think for so many of us, we're trained, we're programmed to live inside of the lines, right? Like, don't color outside the lines, don't step outside, don't speak about things outside of them. And then what we find is we're miserable. The lines are like a cage. Mm-hmm. We might as well be in a prison of thought and of feeling. And that ability to, I can say the same thing. I mean, I've got one of my water bottles here, and it's covered in our logos. And, my decision to go bright branding rainbows with everything is like, what, I'm tired of being the masculine, the typical masculine character that I was brought up to be, which, darker colors and very square. And like, oh man, I like high heels.
Absolutely. Amen, brother. Yeah. We got to let our freak flag fly for sure. And communities around, live music and festivals and all those things help. But can we then take that stuff back? And can we just on a day-to-day, live in the authentic ways that we feel comfortable in those settings? Can we do that all the time?
So this is the perfect circle, as I was hoping it would. What brought us together was at last Burning Man, I decided to make the effort to become a volunteer for Zendo in the psychedelic peer support community.
Yes.
And did the training and volunteered and got accepted and showed up to my shift to work at the Zendo to help people who are having challenging experiences. And while I was there, I got to meet a wonderful mutual friend of ours who put us in touch. And this is the beauty of these circles overlapping and continuing to radiate out beyond the festival itself or the party itself, and actually having a positive impact and effect in the world around us. And most importantly, changing culture, right?
Absolutely. Thank you for being of service, by the way. That's a hugely important aspect of keeping these bits of culture like Burning Man actively going, that keeping these, safe places, harm reduction, education, these things are so critical.
Yeah, 100%. I am involved in local community here where we host events, and they're usually 1 or 2 nights, parties out in nature in beautiful settings. And they're very much in line with the Burning Man ethos of, leave no trace and radical self-reliance, and creating and curating safe spaces like yourself for people to have experiences of opening. And with that comes risk, as there is in any collective gathering, and wanting myself to be more educated on how to navigate and mitigate and manage these kinds of situations and environments. And, how do we build an ethos within our community that moves towards sustainability and moderation and openness about where we're at, and being able to support one another and hold space for one another. And I'm going to bring that over to your manifesto, because I was reading through the District216 manifesto, and this is the stuff that's important to me, right?
Thank you for reading that.
Yeah, for me, I have spent hours and hours and hours working through our values and vision for our Desert Soul Collective, and I see you've done the same, and it says a lot about who you are, that this is what's important to you, that you clarify your intentions. So please have the floor to speak towards the manifesto and the intentions of District216.
Wonderful. Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's where it started. I didn't even necessarily understand the business model fully, but I already had clarity around the manifesto. Really, that has been an ethos of all of the teams and all the organizations that I've been involved in, whether we go way back to, Boy Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout, and going through that huge part of my life, or being in marching band and being in these sort of team-driven, discipline focused organizations, all the way to like creating a company culture and having, a culture booklet that defines values and onboards interns and staff with it. And you mail it out to a client to say, hey, here's who we are. We're starting to date. We've done these sorts of things. So it's been in my DNA. It's been in my organization's DNA. So for District216, though, the sort of the special piece of this is that my biggest, probably one of my top at least few inspirations was my dad. And he passed away a little less than 2 years ago from a rare blood cancer. And, he was a writer. He was a poet. He's got books of poetry. My sister and I have published one. We're going to publish another one now that he's gone. And he was also a guidance counselor. He helped tremendous amounts of people through their lives at very pivotal transitional periods, going from high school out into the real world and so on. And it wasn't until he passed that I had started to learn all these stories about what an impact he had. I mean, I thought I knew, but I didn't really know until these people were like, you don't understand what your dad meant to me, or what he did for me, or how he was there, how he listened. And so one day it just, I don't know, a lot of writing has come through since he's passed. And one of those spurts was this manifesto. It just, when you hear those cliche stories from an artist, a musician, and they can't explain why a song that normally takes them days or weeks or years to write, it just happens in an instant. It was one of those moments. It just kind of flowed through me, and I couldn't help but just finish it in a moment. And, it got polished and edited, of course, but for the most part, that was just channeled through him. And a lot of the values that he raised my family, my sister and I, with my mom, through are there, but also synthesized with a lot of my own business practices. So I'm very proud of that. It is central and critical to District216. And I will say we've had to use it, unfortunately, a couple of times with a couple people that are battling addiction, to set some boundaries and say, look, these are the values that we have here. We just simply can't have behavior like that around District216.
So don't you think that's the true value of having them, is to actually be able to, religion has used this context for a long time with, utmost detail. And for me, having a very simplified version that works within our given community that we all agree upon, that doesn't necessarily have a context that relates to a higher power. It's about what we as the community have said, this is what we're putting forward as our set of values, not because of fear or judgment or power or control, but because this is what we know lifts us up and raises our energy. Cliche statement, raises our energy. It creates the space. It connects us. It allows us to see ourselves. It gives us the room to grow. It does all the things that we need, and it doesn't exclude anybody.
So well said. I couldn't have said it better. I mean, the only other thing I would add is like when we're making a container, we're setting space. Typically, there are some ground rules that are set in that process. So this kind of advances that, right? It's like you're coming into this container, whether it's to a smaller Wednesday night gathering that we have weekly or to our bigger marquee events once a quarter. And this is the context of the value system that you can expect.
So do you pre-share these in written or digital form? Are they up, in the venue for people to read?
Yes.
How are they digested? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, for our programs that we have for our marquee events, I can actually do a show and tell. It's not too far from me. We print these out, each time we do like a marquee event, and it just has a run of show and sponsors and whatnot. But the back panel is 100% the manifesto. Of course, I got the dedication to my dad at the bottom there, but that is something that's handed out to every single person. These are about 250 to 300 person gatherings. We've done 4 of them this year, quarterly, like I said. And so that is something I've also incorporated into my presentations there at these events where I'm talking about District 216. It has been a very critical piece for me of the entire organization.
Yeah, I would mirror the statements for myself as an individual, developing my own value set, and then within the organizations that I work within, whether it's the Arts Collective or the company that I founded, companies, they all each have their own value set, and they're quite similar. Each has their own uniqueness about them, but I find that when it's there on the wall for us to refer back to, especially when we find ourselves in a place of conflict between ourselves or inside the community, there's just a clear path about how to manage those. So before I take us forward to more detail about your actual events, I'd like to provide the opportunity either for you to review these and share them, or I could do it.
When you say these, you mean the events?
No, the actual
the
manifesto. Yeah.
I want to hear it. I want to be the.
You want to hear it?
I want to be the audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read through these. There are 15 of them. They're numbered, and I'd like, if there's anything that you want to reflect or add on them as I share them, please feel free to jump in.
This is incredible, by the way. Thank you so much for being so mindful about this piece. It's so. I mean, I've got goosebumps. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. Absolutely is. Number 1, presence. Be here now, Ram Dass, and fully experience life. Turn off your mind, relax, and float downstream.
Yeah, the influence is there.
Yeah. Number 2 is community. Show up fully and join in wholeheartedly, as the sum of us is greater than ourselves, and we all belong here. Number 3, awareness. Move with curiosity to explore within and without for greater wisdom.
Another Beatles powerful reference there for the nice Beatles fans in the audience. That's 2 awesome. Beatles references already.
2, yeah. Float downstream.
Yeah.
It's the other one, yeah. Number 4 is authenticity. Allow identity constructs to melt away so we can each reveal our true self. Number 5, honor. Know who and what have come before, cultures, traditions, and life ways, and seek to bring their benefits into the future. I really like that. It oversteps tradition and speaks towards respect for those who have already, made the mistakes and learned from them.
And when I hear the term, standing on the shoulders of giants, which is certainly in this, to me, I always thought of it more of like scientific advancements, like we're learning and then we're expanding on those things. But I wanted it to feel more like, from our elders and from these civilizations that have come before us.
Yeah. It's amazing as we get older how much we suddenly go, wow, older people really know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Number 6 is art and science. Beautiful. Unravel the most effective answer at the intersection of intuition and data. Man, do I ever resonate with that one. It's like home for me.
Yes.
Number 7 is disruption. Challenge the status quo to inspire our greater good. Yes.
Yeah.
Number 8, natural selection. Evolve with constant refinement while looking to nature for answers, recognizing that human systems are imperfect. Number 9 is expansion. Escape the feedback loop of our own bubble with diverse perspectives that dissolve preconceptions and usher new ideas, networks, and people into our lives. Now, I want to touch on this really quick because I'm an introvert, and you might not be able to tell it because I do engage in an outward way, but I go way inside my own feedback loop way too much. And getting out of the bubble and getting other people's perspectives has been some of the most powerful healing that I've done. So I really love that that's in there.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Number 10, patience.
True. It's got to tell myself this one.
Pause, as it is the silence between the notes that make the music. This is one of my very favorite quotes.
I was about to say the same thing.
Yep. It's lives close to my heart all the time, and the practice of pause is such an art in itself. All right, number 11, play. Channel your inner child's lighthearted wonder, curiosity, and thirst for fun to create elevated experiences and solutions. The child inside of us knows what's up.
Nope.
Number 12 is oneness. Look to all the stars to honor our cosmic blueprint. Gravity's got a hold of us all, and we're all star stuff.
There's a few references in there. This is a really important one to me. First of all, you've got the cosmos, reboot into Neil deGrasse Tyson, obviously. But the gravity's got a hold of us all is actually Jack Johnson, the artist, wrote a song, but that's a reference back to Vonnegut. It's a Kurt Vonnegut concept from I forget which book. I apologize, but this idea that gravity's got a hold of us all. At the end of the day, like, we are very small.
And then we are all star stuffs. Carl Sagan, right?
Sagan, yep. It's Sagan and Neil deGrasse doing the reboot on Sagan. And it's all wrapped in there. Man, Sagan just hits me. His tone and delivery just steamrolls me with love every single time. Speaking of that, number 13 is love. Open your heart to the people, experiences, ideas, and vulnerabilities that show up. Thank you. Number 14, courage. Transmute fear to courage, acts of consciousness expansion. Transmute fear to courage, courageous acts of consciousness expansion. I'm pretty dyslexic. As an introvert though, right? This is an opportunity to take that fear and move it into something where you can be vulnerable in a group.
Yeah. Last on the list here, 15, let it be. Another Beatles reference. Leave judgments at the door, as what will be revealed is it's all understood.
Yep. And that's another title to a Jack Johnson song. It's all understood.
Yeah, I love that song.
So there's a lot of the music tapestry woven from my influences in my life there too. And again, very, very grateful that you took the time. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, and again, you putting this out into the world and having the more of us that do this for ourselves and our communities, the more alignment we'll find. Because as I review this list, it's basically the same list with some slight rewordings of the same things that I have in my life same things that I see at Burning Man, the same things I see in the cultures that I choose and wish to continue to foster and create. So we find our alignment by saying, this is what's important to me and why.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And,
yeah.
And of course, you have the manifesto dedicated to Daryl Tell, your father. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome. So let's jump over to here now, putting on these events in this, we said a warehouse, a big building. Tell me about it. Give me a description. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is where my day job, Oniracom, the marketing agency, I'm sitting in my office here. We've got other tenants in the building. We have other Oniracom employees in the building. And when it's not just office space, like I said, we rent it out. We do photo shoots, video shoots, and live streams here during daytime hours. And then nights and weekends, it becomes an event space. We've had comedy shows and music and private parties and weddings and whatnot. That is a brand of itself called Loto Studios. So we're in Loto Studios, and Loto Studios has hosted all 44 District 216 events. And we've had, if you can believe it, we launched January 29th, the end of January. In just 10 months, we've had 44 events, and all of them have been here at Loto Studios.
Oh, you've been busy.
Yeah. Yeah. Sleep has not been really one of my values as of this 2023, but we'll get there. We're building something, and it takes a little extra put in, but it's been exciting. It's been amazing.
So I went on the website and I scanned through some of the different things that you've hosted there, some of the talks, and there's a number of videos and different types of gatherings. So describe for our audience some of the difference between, say, the quarterly
marquee.
The marquees, thank you.
Yeah.
The marquee events versus some of the others, other types of events you got going on.
Absolutely. So every single week, we have a Wednesday night. Today happens to be Thursday. Last night, we had an amazing packed house with a psychologist that does psychedelic preparation and psychedelic integration with patients. She doesn't actually do the journey part, but she does the before and the after. She also will work with ketamine since it's legal. And so she talked all about the connection between dreams and the dream space and the psychedelic realm. And it was fascinating. And we had about, more than average, about 45, 50 folks in the room for that. Normally our Wednesdays are 20, 25 people. And we mix up the formats between like an interview, a presentation format like we had last night. We'll do workshops. We'll have roundtable conversations, or we'll do a documentary film screening. And so we try to mix up the content, both in terms of format, like I said, and also just people with different backgrounds, people that are more on the science end of the spectrum, people that may be on the plant medicine end of the spectrum, people that merge and meld those two very beautifully. Some that are more focused around on the artistry, some that are more focused around the science, whether that's neuroscience or psychology. So it's been mostly consciousness has been the red thread through all of those, and most of them have had a very heavy psychedelic concentration, or at least referenced, if not focused. And again, since the beginning of the year, we've done a weekly Wednesday. I think of the 44 events, about 39 of them have been this weekly Wednesday format.
Well, okay, that sounds great. And so this is a members only club. So how does that work?
So it's membership driven. We do also sell guest tickets for those people that want to come try it out. Maybe they only want to come to a couple of here and there. Members are going to get more value. Obviously, if you're a member, not only are you having access to all the events and you can bring guests, but we have an entire online ecosystem. We recently launched an app. We use a platform called Mighty Networks, and we put all of our content in there. So every single interview, lecture, discussion panel is filmed, edited. We put graphics and, color corrected and good audio, and it's 4K and all that good stuff. And we pop it into the app. And so if you missed one and you're a member, you can go back in and watch that later. You can comment on it. You can connect with other members around that content. So that's another big add value. And then for those people that aren't lucky enough to be in and around the Central Coast of California, which, by the way, I do want to have more District 216 locations elsewhere, and that's the roadmap. But you can just get an online membership, and globally we have a community of people that are logged in and tuned into the content that aren't necessarily able to go to lectures like that in their hometowns.
Yeah, that applies to me. I live in a rural area of Utah. So, it's not easy access to a lot of these, bigger cities, cultural centers where I'm going to get exposure to this. We've got our little happenings here and there, but that's the kind of thing that I'd love to engage where, when I sit down in the evening to relax, I could flip on a talk one of these Wednesdays and suddenly be able to engage the community that I know I'm a part of, even as though I'm on the long end of a spoke.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. So let's go into the marquees.
Yeah.
Tell me about the marquees, because these are the big showboat events, right?
Yeah, we launched with one. We do one a quarter. The first one, our launch event, we had a couple of women from an FDA-backed, university-driven psilocybin research program that uses VR technology as an integration tool. It was fascinating. Our second one, we had all about plant medicine, some fantastic speakers in and around the plant medicine realm. The third one was near and dear to me. It was all Native American reciprocity. Benefit Honoring was the title, and we had incredible people come talk about the Native American reciprocity and the relationship of psychedelics companies and the responsibility and stewardship we have to connect in properly that way through benefit honoring and other mechanisms. And then most recently, our fourth one was on sex and psychedelics, and it was an all-women panel on sexuality and psychedelics and safety and all sorts of related things. And that was a fantastic event a couple of weeks ago. The marquee events focus around one topic, one panel. So instead of a single speaker, we're having maybe 3 or 4 panelists and a moderator. And then it's a 2-part event. The first part is seated. We have a beautiful parking lot that we convert into a venue. We have a stage, and we do amazing projection mapping and really cool visuals and, food and drink and all of that good stuff. By the way, all non-alcoholic events. We don't have any alcohol served. It's a pretty high vibrational type environment, although we do offer and have a cannabis lounge and cannabis beverages with various cannabis sponsors, but no alcohol, just to be super clear on that. And the second half, when we remove all the chairs and the discussion panel's over, then the live band comes on and it turns into more music and networking. And there's about usually 15 or so sponsored booths throughout the space as well.
Fantastic. I'm a huge fan of the dry events. I remember early on in my career anyways, I made a trip to New York City, and I went to an underground show to go and see one of my favorite DJs, Danny Tenaglia. And they had a venue literally in the underground, where it's down one of these alleys into a dark, door. And, you go inside and they don't serve any alcohol at all. And the vibe was just so much better than any club experiences that are, drowned in alcohol. Just disgust me, really. I mean, there's so much energy in there that I don't want to connect to or participate with and having these spaces where I can go and feel a sense of sobriety, and that people are understanding that there's a certain amount of respect that comes with it, to say, we're gonna put that to the side here, so that while we're in this space, we're coherent and we're sharp and we're attentive and we're present, which is right at the top of your list, is presence.
Yep.
And I feel like that numbing, that presence, takes us away from why we're really there.
Alcohol is a depressant. It's a numbing agent. It's an escape. And when I created the sort of the pitch deck for this concept of District216, my problem slide was basically something like, I'm tired of bars, empty conversations, and the people that frequent them. So we're creating an alternative space. There's already plenty of places in Santa Barbara or any town USA that you can go and drink. So why do we need to create yet another place for that, when we can have a much more meaningful outcome of an evening? And also, by the way, if you want to have a cannabis beverage or, take a microdose of something, then that's fine. It's a safe place for that, but you're going to actually remember the next day what that conversation was.
So as a businessman, I see navigating the hurdles of that, the fatal attraction of the alcohol profit margin being like the number one reason why people establish, a liquor license along with a venue, because the revenue that comes alongside it is just flowing, literally flowing, right? So talk to me about the challenges and how you've been navigating curating this space. And it sounds like the multi-purpose functionality of it is helping to, chart this course, because it seems like in the world we live in, overheads are so high that we've got to find a way to, make it not only break even, but a profitable venture so that it can continue to sustain itself.
Absolutely. Right? So for the District216 events, my model has been sponsorship. So looking to brands that want to align with, maybe they're directly on the nose in the psychedelics ecosystem, or maybe they're tangential to it. You got companies, and they're not my sponsor yet, but if you're out there listening, Dr. Bronner's, you've got amazing companies out in the world like Dr. Bronner's who are very pro the psychedelics movement ecosystem. In fact, their HR departments are like providing their staff with ketamine-assisted therapies. And I mean, just so ahead of the curve in so many ways. They would be an ideal sponsor for us. But groups like that are coming in and maybe getting a booth or putting their logo out here and helping cover some cost that way. So that's one answer to your question on revenue. And then the other one has been mostly on ticket sales for either if they're members, they're in, but if they're buying a ticket as a guest, there has absolutely been a little bit of questioning and pushback on, wait, there's no alcohol, there's no drinking. Like, I'm not used to going to an event like this that's multi-hour long and you're asking me to sit and watch some content and then you're having me, want to groove to a band and network. Like, I need some social lubrication. What's the deal?
Yeah.
And we have that conversation is like, this is why all the reasons we've already said, we stick to our guns, and then we know very quickly who our alcoholic friends are. No, I'm just kidding. But that has been brought up.
Yeah, I could totally see how you're going to continue to navigate that while you define a culture that isn't that,
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm a huge fan. Well done. The idea of being able to go out for an evening that includes education or edutainment, and being able to be present for, live interaction and conversation, and moving that into then connections and social situations sounds like the kind of place I want to hang out, because you'll never find me at a bar.
Yeah.
Just never. And so because of that, I mean, just speaking as an individual, I feel isolated in society. Like, I don't have a place, like exactly. I don't have a home, right? Like, where am I supposed to go?
Absolutely. We're leaning into this. Like, I know that the term coin may not be the right one, but this Cali sober concept of like, I don't drink, but it's cannabis and mushrooms, and that's my thing. But to your point, if I'm going out now to a place where I know it's going to be a very social alcohol-driven thing, I'll just bring like a little THC nano-infused 5 or 10 milligram thing to drop into my non-alcoholic drink and make that my frequency. And fine, I can still be social and hang and do all those things. But it's true, there's so much pressure for the non-drinker out there. And it's like, by default, almost every single location, holiday, event is automatically alcohol tangential. So we want to help change that culture. We don't need to have that necessity that alcohol necessitated in our events.
Yeah. I really feel you, and I am extremely grateful. I'll look forward to the next time that I'm in your neighborhood, because I'll definitely make a point to come by and spend some FaceTime one-on-one and get to know the community there. I will very much look forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to have you.
Thank you. I want to speak towards your upcoming event, January 20th, 2024, Veterans, PTSD, and Psychedelics. And now, before I hand you the mic, I want to reference my own relationship with so many people. I've been honored in this life to have lived this incredible life that I almost don't feel worthy of. And it is held up, the ability to have lived it is held up by the veterans and the first responders who are there taking care of us and protecting our freedoms. And I have seen so many of my friends and coworkers in these spaces struggling intensely with PTSD. And I've seen the complete reversals of lives that were just going down the toilet, coming back and seeing the light of day again because of psychedelics. And for me, I understand, and I heard it straight from a Navy SEAL. It was a Navy SEAL at this Psychedelic Sciences conference. He said, we're the bridge. We're the ones that are going to make it possible for psychedelics to get beyond California or Colorado or Portland, where the cultures are a little more flexible to this, but to get into the red states where the culture is not so accepting of the idea of psychedelics as a modality of healing. And the veterans are the ones who are respected, revered, loved, and cared for. And if these medicines are able to bring them healing, then these medicines are, quote, air quote, okay.
So well said. I mean, God, there's so many places my mind goes. I go back to like George Carlin and talking about language that we use, and, you know, talking about like shell shock, like I remember him literal shell shock. I remember the George Carlin bit about this because he was talking about the softening of language to justify, you know, acts of war and all these things, and how it used to be this very like shell shock. And, you know, now it's this PTSD and, you know, this post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's like how we've changed the language to kind of change the way that our culture has had a relationship with like having to help and having to prioritize these things. There's been so much lip service given to support our troops. I mean, not to point out just people on the right and during the Bush era, but I just remember, you know, Iraq and having like, you know, Republican run Congresses and executive branches not funding armament for our troops and basic things, let alone when they come back and having the VA be the disaster it is and not having access to, you know, treatments. I think that things have started to change a little bit there. I'll give credit to MAPS having, you know, Governor Rick Perry come and keynote and talk about the need for this. So I'm not trying to single this out. In fact, I love the bipartisan nature of our conversation now in psychedelics, that we can see that this isn't just a left-right, this is a human issue and a mental health related issue, and a desperate one. But, you know, if there's any way that any treatment can provide any relief for, to your point, the people that have created and protected what we supposedly love and behold as this country, how could we not? You know, how could we not be touting these things? And even if to carve out exceptions immediately for veterans and first responders and deal with the general population later, like why and how is this not already here now? Thank God we have ketamine assisted therapy, and that's legal. You know, I know MDMA and psilocybin around the bend with our clinical trials, and Rick Doblin is just can't speak his praises enough for what he's done through MAPS, but it's just not, it's too little too late. It's not enough. The number of daily suicides, I mean, you learn one stat and then you wait 6 months and that stat's wrong because the daily number of suicides is already increased again from this cohort. And it's unbelievable. So if we can do a little tiny bit to shine a light on this and create a conversation that keeps momentum going, then I'm January 20th is a critical event for us.
So thank you very much for that share and that perspective. I wanted to open the discussion around this topic specifically with the hopes that even one veteran hears this podcast and goes to that event because of hearing about this, and then finds their way towards some relief from the post-traumatic stress through these modalities. And again, I also applaud Rick Doblin and MAPS. I've been following Rick for 25 years now, and since I first found out about MAPS. And the stage 3 clinical trials of MDMA are complete and things are moving forward. And I mean, I fully expect that we'll see clinics within the next 2 years up and operating. And
I agree.
Rolling it. Yeah.
And then our panel is not quite complete, but we already have Three, I can say names, and we're excited about Chad McLean from Mental Joe, veteran who, was suicidal and, all the way to, he was seconds from pulling the trigger. And, luckily his wife and law enforcement were able to save him. And he eventually got into ketamine assisted therapy and then MDMA and psilocybin treatments. And now he's turned it all around, become an entrepreneur, started an apparel company that gives back to first responders and veterans. Had him here at the District House. He spoke on a Wednesday night. So honored to have this panel, sort of built it around him. And then we've got Diego Valde, Navy SEAL, who's leading these journeys for other high performing, SEALs and high performing veterans that need even extra care. He's going to be here. I'm so honored. And Martine from Mission Within. I mean, already three just
great,
top-notch, incredible humans. And we're going to round that out with one more speaker, most likely, and an amazing moderator, TBD, on those. And we'll have the announcement. Our target is to announce it by Veterans Day on 11/11.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I got to meet Martine back in June in Denver. Yeah. Amazing. So this is the kind of work, why I want to highlight this. This is the kind of work that affects our culture in a positive way. You say psychedelic social club, that could be interpreted as, it's a bunch of people who want to hang out and get high together, right? It could land on one far end of that spectrum.
People.
Yep.
I don't go on Reddit anymore.
Yeah, I'm sure people would say that. But then when you really look at what's going on here, is we're talking about finding modalities of connection and healing for those of us that most need them, and everybody in between. I loved the conversation on sex and psychedelics. I watched the video the other night.
Awesome.
And it was wonderful to hear everything that was spoken about there. Yeah, this is the path. This is the way. So
this is the way. Amen to that. Yeah. And you just said it, man. Connection and healing. It's funny, I put this manifesto out and we set these value systems, but until you actually have people here and then kind of parroting back their experiences, they've told me, and many of the members and guests have come up to me and said, those are the two things. Thank you. I have connection. I have community now. I've been in Santa Barbara. I haven't really felt like I found my tribe or my people, and now I have. And then also several people have come and said, I have gotten tremendous healing from knowing that I'm not crazy. I can come to this place and say, I just hallucinated and saw this thing. And wait, you're not saying I'm crazy? You actually want to engage me and go deeper and try to help me find meaning to what that experience was? Oh my God, I had nowhere else to go. That to me just makes it all so worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jacob, let's get your handles out there. How do people get in touch with you? What are all your handles? Lay it down.
I mean, for me personally, I'm easy. It's Jacob Tell, at Jacob Tell on all the things. And JACOB. It's not that weird K spelling since the vampire movie came out. I keep getting hit with that question. And then for District 216, all of it's linked at the bottom of district216.com. Get on our mailing list. We send out a weekly newsletter about all the events and different content that we have. But then if you want to specifically find us on Instagram, which is our most active platform, it's just at District216 official, because someone else out there got District 216. Go figure.
Yeah. And what about the app? I'm curious myself to get on there. So where do I find it? How do I get signed up?
On the website, district216.com, that big purple button in the upper right. I think it just says become a member.
Become a member. Yeah.
That will then send you to a grid of the options of the different tiers. And then any of those free trial, 1 week free trial buttons will get you into the app ecosystem. And you can either stay in the web, or you can actually download an Apple or Android version of the app if you really want to get fancy and be in the app itself. So either way, web or app.
Cool. Thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to have a chance to share about before we bring this show to a close?
Man, I just, this is what it's all about. It takes everybody using their platforms. You with this podcast, me with bringing together community. We all have this greater purpose, and I really do believe in that. Rising tide lifts all ships. ethos. And I just appreciate you having me here, taking the time to do the research, read the manifesto. Both of us, I feel, have connected and actively listened. And that's all we can hope for, to help elevate consciousness and help change humanity for the better.
Thank you, Jacob. Like, I mirror everything that you say. I love your work, man. I love your work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on the show today. If you'd like a cost-free way of supporting the podcast, please consider subscribing, YouTube, Spotify, follow us on Instagram, leave us a 5-star review. Anything to support and spread the word is truly appreciated. The thing that really keeps the show going is the Patreon community. Without the financial support of everybody in our Trust the Journey family, we would literally not be able to produce these shows. So if you'd like to become a member and find yourself connected and supported in a virtual space where we're fostering the same set of values that we've been talking about on this show, where we're there for each other, we have a collective community where everybody is welcome and our values are clear, go ahead and get on Patreon and make a donation at any level. Thank you very much for being on the show today, Jacob. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to further getting to know you better in person.
Yes.
And
IRL, in real life.
Yes, in real life, yeah. And I can't wait for you to meet my co-host, Miss Melanie Curtis. I'm sure you guys are going to vibe.
Yes, I watched you two vibe on some episodes, and I'm very excited to meet her as well.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Well, thank you. Keep loving, keep laughing, and keep trusting the journey.